Hey, everybody, this is Scotty Alexander, and you're listening to Texas Toast Podcast.
So let's go.
Cheers, hello, and welcome everyone to the Texas Toast Podcast with Miss Helen. And I'm so happy and excited to welcome Scotty Alexander to this episode. Hello, Scotty. How's it going?
Hi, Miss Helen. Nice to see you. How was your Easter?
It was really good. It was a really good Easter and kind of quiet. Yeah, but it was good. How was yours?
Wonderful. I'm going to say exactly the same. We were driving back from Denison up on the Oklahoma border, so half of Easter was spent in the rig with the guys, which is always great. I love them. And then got to be back with my kids by that afternoon. So it was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're staying busy. We're going to talk about your tour, talk about your music, but I want to dig into you. I mean, like you play so many instruments. We'll get into that, but you started at a young age, like 6 years old. Here I come world.
Oh, you've done your homework. It's funny how those things haunt you for the rest of your life. Yeah, I was 6 years old, and there was a little talent competition in the town that I grew up in, and I immediately went in and sang this Anne Murray song, and I was addicted immediately. So I didn't want to be done with it, and I didn't want Mom to take the rhinestones off my little Sunday suit. You know, I just wanted to stay in Porter Wagner mode the rest of my life, and from that moment on, they put their back into it too. And I made a record at 6 years old and released it, and went on and did a bunch of shows after that. And that's how the whole thing started.
Yeah, you did a bunch of shows, and also you were on with Bob Hope.
Yeah, I was lucky enough early on to be the novel kid act. And so Mr. Hope took me out as the opening act to sing the national anthem. And it just kind of led from there. And then it was, some of the Mandrell sisters, and on and on and on, all the way through. I even got to open for Mr. Straight on his first tour. Wow. And, again, I was the child act, that was kind of cute to put up in front of the big headliners then. But it was a great education from an early age.
Certainly. So when did you start picking up the instruments?
I started playing fiddle when I was probably 8 years old. My grandfather passed away when I was really young. I got the family fiddle. And then by the time I was 8, 9, 10, I guess somewhere in there, I'm holding it out here, trying to make the thing squeak and make it work. Fiddle was first, then guitar, then piano, banjo, bass, the rest of it. Our basement looked like a pawn shop, looked like a used music store. So I just kind of went around one to the other and figured them out.
That's amazing. How did you figure them out? Were you self-taught or did you take lessons?
I'm probably 80-20. 80% I figured it out on my own. And then for the real technical stuff, fiddle stuff, my folks put me with a great, bluegrass teacher when I was a kid, and cleaned up a bunch of fiddle habits. And guitar's not easy, but I mean, if you can listen to a record and try and make it sound like the record, then you're playing guitar. Fiddle can be like a medieval torture device. I mean, if you're screwing that thing up, nobody's your friend, So I spend a lot of time on that, even now, making sure that it's in tune and sounding okay.
Well, you are phenomenal. I've got to see you in person. But let me ask you this. Were there other instruments per se that maybe you tried and picked up that didn't work out for you, or like everything that you've tried, you succeeded?
That's the first time I have ever been asked that. That's a great question. Yes, I failed miserably at saxophone. I thought I was going to pick up some brass and try to trumpet for a little bit. And I picked up the saxophone, tenor sax. And I mean, I could squeak out tequila and, that kind of stuff, but I was not a horn player. I was not a reed player at all. And then a friend of mine gave me a double neck Emmons steel guitar when I was in my late teens. And I mean, I was just absorbing everything I could. And I was trying to make it sound like John Huey, and I couldn't make it sound like Two Cats in a Sack. It was just awful. So I gave up on that.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay, well, good. That's all I could think about because you're just so proficient with instruments and just amazing. I'm thinking, is there anything he doesn't do? So okay, so then ultimately you ended up in Las Vegas for a stint for a while and very successful there. You hosted a TV show, Country Tonight, and then you worked with Wayne Newton, became his music director. So you go from all of that to that.
Yeah, it was a good transition, really, because in my late teens, I was already kind of ready to get off the road, and I was about to turn 21, and country, of course, and that was the '90s. I mean, middle '90s, and country ruled the world. I
Mhm.
mean, it was Garth and George, and it was the golden age of country music, and so Vegas was throwing money at anybody and everybody that knew their craft and wanted to come be a part of a production show there. And I mean, mega heavyweight players were coming off the road. I mean, George Jones's fiddle player, Vance Davenport, left George Jones to go to Vegas and just play these country shows. They were throwing so much money at all of us kids. And so we did. And that ended up actually being phenomenal because there was such a big country world in Vegas at that time. People were coming to Vegas to see country music back then, not now, but then for sure. And so from there, I had established myself in town, and then I got the call to come on as Mr. Newton's guitar player, and the extra instruments were kind of a bonus. And then a couple years into it, my boss quit, and then I had the opportunity, and I had to really speak up because I didn't know how to write sheet music for an orchestra, but I knew how to run a band. And of course, Mr. Newton's arrangements were already written, so I just had to run the band, and that was unbelievable. That's a whole nother book. That was 8 years, movies and televisions and world tours and USO stuff, and what a blessing. I mean, it was an incredible college to attend and spend that time with him.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I kind of see things looking at the timeline on your career to where that was kind of like getting that college degree.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Without the student loans.
True that. And great hands-on experience. Okay, so then you did a lot of stuff in Nashville also.
Yeah, that became, I guess, after the childhood and then the Vegas time, I knew I was done with Vegas. It wasn't country anymore. And so we ended up in Nashville. And at that time, country was still pretty country. And I had friends in the Brad Paisley camp, and I ended up editing. It's called editing. It just means that after the guys record the music, there's a team that goes in kind of with the producer in order to clean everything up and make it sound squeaky Nashville clean. And so I had a great job with Frank Rogers and Brian David Willis, and there's basically everything that went through Warner Brothers at that time. And I'm sitting behind a computer just moving squiggly lines and making it sound Nashvilleian records. And it was great because I learned the craft at the highest level out there. But I had my studio on Music Row. I had a publishing deal that I learned a lot from too. And all of it was nothing that I really could see myself doing long term. I could have stayed there and worked in the business, and that was never my intent. My intent was to write songs and be a poet and play my instruments and be on the road. And I guess because of these other skill sets, I just kept getting drawn into the work side of it, which was good. Lisa and I have been married for a long time and have 3 beautiful kids, and a lot of times road work doesn't pay for children and mortgages, but my jobs did. We were very blessed. So it took a big leap here a few years back to go, okay, now we've got to go into the 4th phase and make our own records.
And that is what we are really going to dig into and talk about. So how long have you been songwriting?
My first album when I was 6, I wrote some of those songs. I mean, it's, Barney on steroids, but I mean, I wrote a few of those songs. So I've always dabbled in it. Written a lot of jingles for different companies, and always had that creative spark. And then of course in Nashville, starting in 2011, I was a full-time songwriter, and had cuts with Brian White and Point of Grace, and those were all wonderful. But then songwriting became something that I was doing for someone else. And when we came back home to Texas to make sure that, this is where the petri dish of the music began, I really had to teach myself how to learn to write for me. And that's what we really started getting into last year with The Road We're On.
Mm-hmm.
And now this year, this record's going to be called Till Somebody Dies. And I have never pulled the curtain back further in my own heart and what I need to say and how I would say something. And it's changed the shows. It's changed my life too.
Well, let's talk about your radio releases to Texas, which have all charted and all done great. Cowboy's Daughter, One More Reason, which we talked about on the podcast, and also Nothing Good Happens After Midnight. Absolutely fell in love with that song when it came out. And so you've got a lot of things in the works, but let's talk about, in particular, I also listened through all of your music. I do want to talk about a song that you just released, Oh Girl, I'd Be in Trouble. And I found that interesting because I'm listening to it. I'm like, wait a minute, this is a song, but wait, this is Scotty Alexander and the old coming together with the original songwriter. So tell us about that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. 10 years ago when I was in Nashville, I don't think I heard the song. It was just always a song from the Chi-Lites that I loved as a kid. I mean, there's no more chorus to me. It's so singable, it's just, oh girl. I mean, you walk around the house singing it, right? So I always heard it as a country song. I took that idea to my publisher back then, and he literally said, oh, hell no, you don't want that mess. That's the Chi-Lites song. And no, but that'd be a remake for you. They think you're a cover artist. Get out of here, right? And that was the end of that conversation. And I was driving, somewhere we do, hundreds of miles every week on the road. And I just couldn't get over it. It was like, okay, well, it needs a country verse. It needs to be a modern country verse. And then believe it or not, that's not their chorus. That's a compilation of phrases from that song against kind of their chord structure that makes that chorus. And when I sing it, it's phenomenal because I see people act like they know it and they sing along because those are all familiar parts, but it's actually not the chorus the Chi-Lites sang. And so anyway, I love that song. The audiences love that song, and I'm tickled to death that you know it too.
Yes. I mean, and at first, really, like I had to check myself because like you said, it's not duplicate, anyway. Yeah. Because I was listening and I was like, wait a minute, wait. Yeah. So that's just the things that you do. You're just such a genius in this music business. And another song, I mean, I love the lyrics. I love how relatable so many of your songs is, but there's one particular song and there's just things that touch me as I listen to music. I absolutely love your song titled Young.
Yeah, thank you. That my dad gave me those lines. I mean, 100%. I was a teenager and I had got smart with him. Imagine that, right?
Imagine that. Us as teenagers, imagine that.
Yeah. What a shocker. But I got smart with him. My dad was 45 when he had me. So by the time I was a mouthy kid, he was going on 70. And I said, how'd you get so old? And he said, you keep going to bed and getting up and the same thing will happen to you. And he goes, you ain't always going to be young. Mm-hmm. And of course, at the time, I thought he was being a grouchy old man. And Dad's been gone for many years now. And I just absolutely fell in love with that idea when I went to write that song. And then, of course, wanting to play fiddle on it, right? I knew that opening line had to be big and fun, So it just became something where I am basically just telling Dad's story until, I hit the chorus.
Awesome stuff. And then Welcome to Texas is such a good staple on your library. Thank
you. That again, true story. I was up in Shamrock in the Panhandle dove hunting several years ago, and I had turned to my friend Dean Crump, and people kind of bypass Amarillo as being pretty, or any place that you would go for any reason other than gas, and just stop and just keep on going to Steamboat or wherever you're going. And we loved it there. We have so many friends there; it's ridiculous. I had turned to him. I said, some people say the plains are as flat as a board, but I swear they're the front porch to heaven's door.
Mm-hmm.
And first line of that song. So yeah, that one means a lot to those people up there too.
Yes. And another just good hometown song, Water Tower Town.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's actually the first line in that, Bobby's selling his barbecue pit off of FM 204. That's my buddy, Robert Truitt, Bobby Truitt. He owns a barbecue store in 58 Junction over in Lufkin. And we played there all the time last year. And so some of those characters are very real in that story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, like, that's just such a real, I mean, like, that's how we roll in the country like that.
Right.
And so, yes, well, you're doing such good stuff. And I know that you've just released Oh Girl, I'd Be in Trouble. Now, are you releasing everything to radio?
Yes, we are. In fact, this last week, it became the second most added song to the T3R station lists. We jumped 30 spots on the chart. And, that's a story of being married to my Lisa for, multiple decades now. And it's, it isn't all bad. It isn't all good. It's everything. And that's how that song came about.
It's a beautiful song. And so obviously it's going to be doing great. We'll be following that on the chart. So you're out, and like you said, you're playing so many shows, and you have the Road We're On tour. That's kind of the name of your tour right now. So how is that going? Where is it taking you? Where are you going?
It's been wonderful. Like I said, this last weekend, we got back from up in Denison on the Oklahoma border. The week before that, we played the majority of the triangle, or, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, all the way up to Dallas. We've gotten out and played Vegas a couple of times. We still have some country places that we can play out there that we bounce out to. And it's been going phenomenal. In fact, this last week was we were just down to one show, which is a rarity. This week we've got 4. So, we're cranking, thank God. And we're going to squeeze the last out of that tour name until we switch gears to the new album here very shortly.
Well, I know something that we talked about when you came by the media center at the T3R Awards, and it's like, there's just something, I mean, like, obviously you have been gifted from the beginning with this talent, but when you get on stage and you start performing, I mean, it's like I told you, it was an experience with you and Rico in the fiddle the year before. And then you did it again this year. Crazy. Oh my God. I was like going nuts. You just
Rico,
have that spark and that charisma. I mean, it's like, it is worth seeing a live show from you, because it's just amazing.
I sure appreciate that. Thank you. I absolutely love Rico. We have such a wonderful, loving competition when it comes to playing. And, he's just a character from one side to the other. And we certainly have talked about later in the year doing some stuff together. The Kinfo brand and Rico and myself and my group. So,
oh, wow.
We'll make sure and post on that if we can find some place to, get that done. But I figured I'd better use this platform to leak that rumor.
Man, I'm telling you, that would be something else. That would be like, Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy birthday. Tie it up in a bow. Wow, that's amazing. So
for the listeners, right, last year we did the Devil Went Down to Georgia. We had this big thing. And this year we didn't get asked to play together. So I'm standing backstage in the wings, and Rico's about ready to walk out, and Kinfo's about ready to do their number to open the show. And I turned to Rico and I said, when you're done with this, I'm going to run out on stage. Like, we're just going to do it anyway, and we'll count it off and freak everybody out. And he goes, okay, yeah, let's do it. So at the end of their song this year, I ran out there like we were just going to tear into another fiddle song together. And I counted it off. I turned around and went, just kidding. And we walked off stage. It was fun. It was a fun moment.
It was fun because, and see, you even got me on that, because I was like, oh no, they're not again. And I was like, get ready, y'all, get ready. And I was like, dang it. Yeah, it was great. That whole closing song, the whole thing was wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, and that's what makes you just one of those people that everybody needs to go see, and like, you have to go see, because you just never know. So you did hit maybe your work. You've got another album in the works.
Yeah, we're almost finished with it. I hate saying that because I'm the guy with my finger on the trigger and everybody looks at me and is like, was it done yet? I'm not, no, I've been working. But yes, that's got some phenomenal new songs on it, and you know, a lot of fiddle playing, a lot of guitar playing, some good ballads. It's really well balanced, but the whole thing overall is upbeat and cranking. And I think the difference between this year's album and last year's album is I've put together an absolutely unbelievable road crew, my band, and I love these guys, and they now develop these songs and get the arrangements with me instead of me recording them with session guys. And so I use my road guys for these records, and the new records, I should say. The record just coming out this summer. And to me, it's all the difference in the world because their heart is so into it. It's so far down the rabbit hole they're so invested in it, is what I'm trying to say. And it makes it really beautiful.
Wow, that's exciting. We'll be having something to look forward to. Well, I think we kind of covered everything. I could still pick your brain. I guess one thing with everything that you've done in the music business, is there any, particular things that stand out for you where it was a point for you to where it's like, this is like what I've worked towards? Or are you still waiting for that moment? Like, what was a big moment for you since you've done so much in your career?
There's several moments that I knew I would never forget, and I knew that they would change me. I knew that they sunk the fish hook so far into my mouth that I was never leaving this business. And it was, multiple moments, and some of them private, just sitting and playing for an audience and the feeling that you can share with other people. Other ones were, playing the Grand Ole Opry. That one, floored me. A night that we had at Do-Si-Do here, where the crowd came and we damn near sold the thing out, and they were singing our songs. And that was the moment. My daughter's in the music business too, and she's putting out her own records and getting started. And she's more of a pop jazz act here in Austin. She's not in country music. And so we had this conversation, and I said, honey, that it was the validation that you need to move forward. It was such a gravitational pull when you see somebody singing your songs and enjoying it on a different level. And that was really, really something that moved me forward.
Awesome. Well, it's been great finally getting you on the podcast and visiting with you. You're one of my favorites. And thank you so much for joining us, Scotty Alexander.
Miss Ellen, I thank you so much and appreciate the time and look forward to doing it again soon.
Yes, for sure. You got a lot of stuff coming up.